Some stories are too disturbing to be fiction. These are not just tales spun for fright, they are real. Welcome to our channel, where we uncover the scariest true stories based on actual events. Brace yourself, because tonight, we are diving into the darker side of reality with 3 terrifying stories that will keep you up at night. Our first story takes us to a long-abandoned asylum, notorious for the cruel treatment of its patients. In the early 1900s, it was home to hundreds of people deemed unfit for society. What happened inside those walls is still the stuff of nightmares. In 1927, a young nurse named Claire started working at the asylum. She was new, naive, and completely unaware of the horrors that awaited her. Patients would scream in the night, and doors would slam shut on their own. But it wasn't until Claire started hearing her name being whispered that she began to believe something more sinister was happening. One night, while doing her rounds, Claire heard the familiar whisper of her name. It was coming from a room that had been sealed shut for years. Against her better judgment, she unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air was thick, and the smell of decay filled her lungs. Then, the whisper stopped. In the dim light, Claire saw something moving in the corner. She took a step closer and the door slammed behind her. Claire was never seen again. Her body was never found, but her uniform was discovered, covered in dust, in the very room she vanished from. To this day, the asylum remains abandoned, but locals claim to hear the sound of footsteps and whispers whenever they walk by. Our second story revolves around a seemingly innocent toy, a porcelain doll passed down through generations of a family. But what looked like a harmless antique soon became the source of unexplainable terror. Maria found the doll while cleaning out her grandmother's attic. It had been in her family for over 100 years, a relic from a bygone era. Maria decided to pass it down to her own daughter, Lily, thinking it would be a cherished heirloom. But almost immediately, strange things began to happen. Lily began complaining that the doll would move on its own, shifting positions throughout the day. At first, Maria dismissed it as a child's imagination. But when the doll started appearing in different parts of the house, Maria realized something wasn't right. One evening, while the family was gathered in the living room, they heard the faint sound of whispering coming from Lily's room. Maria went upstairs, only to find the doll lying on the floor, with Lily insisting she hadn't touched it. The whispers continued for nights, growing louder, until one terrifying evening, the lights in the house began to flicker uncontrollably. The temperature dropped suddenly, and Maria felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Then, Lily screamed. When Maria rushed into her room, the doll was no longer on the shelf. It was sitting upright on Lily's bed, its cracked porcelain hand resting on Lily's arm. Convinced the doll was cursed, Maria took it outside and threw it into a fire pit. But as the flames engulfed the doll, Maria swore she heard a child's voice crying out from the blaze. To this day, the family refuses to speak of what happened, but they believe the doll was more than just a toy. It was possessed by something dark, something evil. Mirrors have long been thought to be portals to the other side. Our final story revolves around a young woman named Emily who inherited a beautiful, antique mirror from her grandmother. It was large, gilded, and had been in her family for generations, but there was something off about it. At first, Emily didn't notice anything strange. But soon, she began to feel like she was being watched. At night, she would wake up to the sensation of someone standing over her, though no one was there. But the scariest moment came one evening when Emily caught a glimpse of something in the mirror that wasn't her. She saw a woman in the reflection, standing behind her, staring with hollow eyes. Terrified, Emily covered the mirror with a sheet, but the haunting continued. Objects in her room would move on their own, and she would hear soft whispers coming from the mirror late at night. After weeks of torment, Emily couldn't take it anymore. She decided to sell the mirror at an auction. The new owners, they returned it just a week later, claiming it was cursed. No one knows where the mirror is now, but some say it's still out there waiting for its next victim.